people with us today, and we are running late in getting started. Can you hear me in the back room? Hi, Dan. Nice to see you again.
We can hear you.
Wonderful to see those of you who aren't on vacation, that this is how you're choosing to spend your time right now. Dr. Abgar, we're really happy that you're with us, but we're starting to need it now. So we apologize for coming into the room late, but we have such a very special guest with us today, Dr. Alan Fremont, who's walking in now. He's going to get himself situated up in the front of the room. Doctor, I wouldn't talk to Carl, okay? Dr. Fremont and I have worked together since approximately 2008. The Right Care Initiative started its planning around the importance of controlling blood pressure, lipids, and blood sugar in 2007, based on 2006 HEDIS data. And we had our first public meeting at UCLA in March of 2008. And Dr. Fremont and I became acquainted when he hosted a special meeting at RAND to show some hotspot mapping to the health plans. He's a national expert in hotspot mapping at the zip code level, and he works with national health plans on better understanding the effect of neighborhood on what is happening to your patients. And he's involved in many collaborative efforts, but one of the sweet secret things that this MD PhD quietly did is that he wrote a 100-page approximate application based on the now very familiar Right Care Triangle to the NIH when there was something called the Grand Opportunity after the Great Recession of 2008. NIH put out calls for proposals to transform healthcare. And the proposal that he wrote jointly between RAND and UCLA ended up funding the effort to take that Right Care Triangle and apply it in depth in one community. So that was awarded in 2009. We went through a process together just as Alan was unfortunately stricken with cancer, and we are so incredibly grateful that he is alive and here with us today because of 2 experimental treatments. And we are, but Alan, no matter how sick he was, he took time to help the leaders come together around the concept of applying what we know in theory should work to one community in depth. And we chose San Diego as our starting community for a variety of reasons, but 2 really important reasons were that we had a critical mass of leadership that was already engaged in the Right Care Initiative in San Diego. Alan's parents lived there, and it was someplace he needed to be despite his illness. He could still be involved. And we had 2 of our major delivery systems in San Diego doing much worse than their counterparts statewide. Kaiser and UC San Diego had very poor performance scores relative to their state counterparts. So it was a very difficult thing cobbling together the initial concept of having a university of best practices. But Alan was just part of that brain trust that came together with the concept of let's create a support group for those that are essentially trying to deliver good care. And as Alan puts it, maybe you can only see, the hair on the elephant's ear from where you sit, say at SAC family clinics. But together, if we all come together and talk together on a regular basis of how are the best performing groups and plans doing it, that we can learn slowly but surely by sharing data, what is a more in-depth picture of what's happening at the community level to improve performance. And many of you were with us on November 5th in Berkeley when we had our statewide summit, where we showed, frankly, much to our astonishment, thanks to the request of Carla Pollack's husband, professor at UC San Diego, Michael Pollack, said, I think we're really doing something here, and it's time to take a look at what is happening with the endpoints. Let's look at those acute myocardial infarctions, see what's happening. And what we've shown is that almost immediately after having we got the grant in San Diego in October of 2009. We started meeting with people in San Diego in 2010. We had 3 scientific day-long meetings in 2010 and 2011, one of which was on the concept of bundled therapy for diabetics and heart disease patients, and that is an approach that's been very successful for Kaiser. They have a variety of formulations of it, but it's essentially proactively, on a population basis, providing aspirin, lipid-lowering agent, and lisinopril in a much more extensive way. So that meeting was held with federal officials and local and state officials in January 2011. And what you see is that by at the end of 2011, rates of acute MI hospitalizations are starting to drop. And I have to say, part of what was happening in San Diego is we had a much smaller group. We only had the delivery systems attending. They are now extending it to a few other partners, including the Department of Public Health. And I'm happy to say that we have with us our Sacramento Public Health Officer with us. We also have with us the California Department of Public Health. And for Alan's benefits, you know who your audience is, we have representatives from all of the major delivery systems and health plans in the region here for you. So I should say something a little bit more formal about Alan's background. He is an MD, PhD. He did his fellowship at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston and the Department of Healthcare Policy at Harvard Medical School. He's co-editor of the Handbook of Medical Sociology, and he's an NIH Disparities Scholar. He's also a lung cancer survivor and a very dedicated husband to another amazing researcher that we've heard from here, Chloe Bird, and he is the father of 2 boys, one of whom he was so thrilled to be able to send off to college this weekend. So with that, Alan, please join us. While his slides are being teed up, I think that the figure that I forgot to throw in there is that at the November summit, when we had the researchers show the data of the impact on the acute MIs in San Diego, the MIs started to drop immediately faster than the state in San Diego through collective action, and by 2014, the acute MI hospitalizations have fallen by 20%, while in the state they had fallen by 6%. So there's something magical happening there, and I'm so thrilled that they probably do have liquid in the water. There are multiple things happening, but one of them is that Alan is quietly keeping everybody at the table through the sweet dessert of what doctors love is data for quality improvement. Go ahead, Alan. You can show them some of your wonderful hotspots.
Actually, my father, who was Kaiser infectious disease physician and had at one point, as he said, foolishly been a medical director, said the secret to sweet stuff was really chocolate chip, warm chocolate chip cookies to get the physicians. Well, it's a delight to be here, and not just because I'm going to be here, alive and all that. I am, not only have we had incredible success in San Diego, which I'll happily share whatever insights I can, on a more personal note, I am tired and exhausted because we just successfully launched our 18-year-old, our oldest son, to college. All right, and you think starting at a regional collaborative is tricky. All right, so what I'd like to do, I do have a lot of slides. I'm going to kind of go through them at various paces, but I do hope this is more of a discussion, and if we miss some slides and stuff like that, that's fine. I already, so, you know, and if you have questions or thoughts as we go along, I can roll it. Okay, so just really briefly reviewing, Hattie's probably told you the story many times, but in case, just to give you some orientation. So as Hattie was talking about, so there was this thing called the Right Care Initiative, which was a statewide initiative set up by the Office of Managed Care, UC Berkeley, and other stakeholders starting about 2008. It grew quickly. Some of you here in the room I recognize, you know, Don, I know you were very active in it. You know, it was great. We were having lots of meetings and so forth. There was clearly an intention that we in California, because of our managed care penetration, should be able to do well, if not better than you know, some of the other states. And it was, you know, so that was the effort, to sort of focus around improving intermediate outcomes for diabetes and cardiovascular disease. But one of the things was there really wasn't much infrastructure either in the RCI itself, let alone trying to do stuff regionally across regions or within any one region. And so, as fate would have it, something lucky happened. There was an economic downturn. The economy almost collapsed. And that meant, on the one hand, that those of you like Don, who had been working with us on one grant where some of the plans were able to give us data, that kind of fell through, but it meant that in 2009 there was this flurry of stimulus grants to all kinds of sectors, and one of the sectors was healthcare. And they were looking for big ideas. It was a grand opportunity grant. And so, you know, we used the fact that there had been some work going on between the different plans, and we were very fortunate. We framed it just right and we got the grant. And so, you know, San Diego was the first place we wanted to look at, and you know, we had these ideas, and many of the healthcare leaders that we were talking to said, yeah, that sounds sort of good, but we really wanted to test it in the real world. So we had some funding. In 2010, we had various kinds of meetings, some of them presenting evidence on, say, bundled therapy for reducing cardiovascular risk. but also trying to enroll different organizations, stakeholders in the concept of sort of this multifaceted regional collaborative and getting feedback. And by about 2010, late in 2010, they said, sure, I mean, let's try this. Really briefly, this is, typically I don't do this, but Hattie pointed out it may have some salience. This is an X-ray you don't want to have. That's 4 to 5 liters of fluid in one of my lungs. At this point, if we had a web connection that worked, I would show you a just hot off the presses 5-minute, very well done video that is showing myself and my family that I did for UCI, where I'm in a clinical trial.
I think we have time. I think
No,
we have
but
time.
we can actually,
You want to try?
okay, we can try. Let's see. I don't, what I can tell you is you've seen this you've probably seen this.
Try. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Let Carla help
Okay.
you.
Anyways, basically it walks through in 5 minutes, a 47-year-old, otherwise pretty healthy guy, didn't smoke, who suddenly, has a 7-year-old and a 13-year-old kid, one about to get bar mitzvah, and on one weekend finds out that coffee it had was something else. And so, it's one dealing with the impact of that and what the hell do you do. Anyways, so you guys.
It looks like it might be.
Oh, it does, awesome, okay. Fire
Thank you,
away.
Carla.
Okay, well, I can drink some pop. All right, enjoy, you got popcorn?
Yes.
All right. My dog got the most filming. In the years leading up to when I was diagnosed with cancer, life was going pretty darn well. I mean, I had a great life. I was, trained as a physician. I was trained actually as a social scientist. And my work really involved improving the quality of care, really trying to understand the patient experience, or kind of where it worked and where it didn't. And so, in the time leading up, I had a wonderful, beautiful wife, and we had 2 beautiful, amazing boys. It was an ordinary but a very blessed life. There had been some clues that something was wrong for several months leading up to it, but as my breathing continued to sort of get worse, we finally got a chest x-ray, and initially you're a little bit numb, but all your coping mechanisms kick in, and so you're hoping that it turns out to be something else. And then you get the call that they've done the initial results and you've got some kind of lung cancer, and it's metastatic and sort of obviously already spread. And it's like a punch in the stomach. And you kind of, you hold it together initially, but when you actually get to the point of then having to communicate that to your wife, let alone talking to your kids, that's incredibly hard.
What we found out was this wasn't something you're just going to deal with. This was drawing a distinctly short stick. So it was stunning. It was terrified as a mom of 2 kids. And then occasionally we get the questions from one of them of, when will Daddy be well? And you try to figure out what's the best answer for, I think maybe we'll get through this. We didn't ever tell them about 1 to 20 people make it 5 years.
The survival rate was very low for that one, even with conventional treatment. As a husband, as a spouse, as a father, as a son, you want to be incredibly positive and hopeful. At the same time, as a physician, the writing was on the wall, so that was hard. a couple weeks later, I got this call from one of the research centers saying we had a new test that's not really yet on the books for a mutation called ROS1, which is in about 2% of the patients, and I had that mutation. And better yet, it was similar enough to the other mutations that they thought that medicine crizotinib, which had worked well for one mutation, might work for this one, and they actually were opening up a new trial, and one of the places they were doing this was at UC Irvine. So I was the second person in the world with the mutation I had who was trying this particular medication. Though it only been about 3.5, 4 weeks, the lung looked almost normal. The tumors were still there, but they were no longer active. They were not acting like cancer. At that point, it was not only like, okay, this stuff might work, and for me, there was a chance, but it really helped open the floodgates for a lot of other patients.
And it wouldn't have been possible without going into the trial. It wouldn't have been possible if Alan had said it's not worth giving this a shot. UC Irvine Health is a blessing. It is a tremendous resource, but it's provided so much phenomenal care to so many people, and it's made a difference for my family.
You know, you have this gem right here in Orange County with UC Irvine Health, where this is one of the leading centers in the world on precision medicine, on targeted therapy, on genetic testing and targeting of different kinds of cancer, particularly lung cancer. But the people here, the new treatments I've received are a large part of why I'm still here 5 years after getting what was supposed to be a terminal cancer. You can't put words to it. Thank you, you know.
Can I add something to this one right here in Alan? So, if I can do this, I don't know how to do this. Alan called me when he found out that he was diagnosed with cancer. And I said, we have to tell Hattie. And so Hattie was the first person that we called. And the Right Care family came together and worked so hard to look at the clinical trials and everything that was going on, and why research is so important. And we love you so much, Alan, and we're so happy that you're here.
And really sincerely, guys, thank you. I've never done that before, and this is new, and thanks for sharing that. So it has some salience. Just really quickly, so on the left, you can see the tops of the PET scan. That actually was the one I was describing. So what you're seeing, if you look at it, that's the right lung, the one with all the freckles, that's 10 tumors, and it's lighting up because they're active. That's 4 weeks later, they're still there, but they're not active, the drug's suppressing. And that became the thing that convinced researchers around the world to start enrolling in this trial, and 50 of us went on to survive and got in New England Journal, and the drug was FDA approved. But just to show you a sense of how far things have come, guys, there was like 2 tests. And what you're seeing there from Foundation 1, that is now, 5 years later, you get a biopsy, you send it off, and you get tested for about 460 different mutational drivers, because they're finding out what we understood about cancer, even specific to systems we had no clue. And then they retest when you get cancer again. I did eventually, about this last January, have to start a new trial, and I'm on a new drug. It is more like a phase 1 and a phase 2. And one of the surprises with this is I actually am so glad I'm in this in the heart attack stroke free zone, because it gets your lipids and everything through the roof. So it's all good. Anyway, so the reason I showed this is really a lead into what we're up to in San Diego, and really kind of what you guys are here for, whether you understand it or not sometimes, or you come in off a busy day and you're at meetings and it's another meeting. But whether you're delivering care within your system or in meetings, you're trying to improve the care for the people you are serving, and that's at an organizational level, but you're also part of the larger community, and you guys collectively are all committed more than you may realize at times for the population, to do well, and everyone to do well. The one of the things I'll talk about is what happened is early on in about 2011, 2012, with some of the Hattie was able to get some fellow, a little bit of a donor to contribute some funds, and we got a public campaign going, and they came up with the thing, I pledge to be there, and that's become one of the calling cards. Anyways, just these are, there's Evan is on the far right, he's the youngest, Jeremy is the tall one, that's Chloe, and that is Ginger. All right, moving on. Okay, so why are we kind of here today? We are trying to improve care. We're also, I could go through the statistics on heart disease and strokes. I actually know it is prevalent, its impact is huge, and especially with the growing diabetic population, it's going to skyrocket. With coronary heart disease and heart attacks and strokes, there are some modifiable risk factors that we've known for a long time that we can do something on. Some of them you can do, you can change health behaviors and so forth, but we now have increasing evidence that there are some medications or some bundled medications that individually or together can substantially lower some of the risk. And this was basically when we started in San Diego, there certainly, talk about a second, was the issue of performance in California on these, how the different delivery systems were performing on certain intermediate outcomes and so forth. But the other thing that happened fairly early on is we got some of the local leaders involved who were at a point in their career where they'd seen enough, and they wanted to change things. They wanted to, with their acquired wisdom, knowledge, and power and authority, or at least their ability to influence and persuade, or their networks, they wanted to change things so that it didn't continue on this. And so one of our champions was a really delightful gentleman named Tony DeMaria. And he's a very esteemed cardiologist. He should have retired a long time ago, but he is still doing more than any of us. But he basically says something like this, and this relates to the cancer stuff. If you're gonna die, you don't want to die from something stupid. There are things that can kill you. There are things you might not be able to do anything about. Total friggin' fluke. I can't tell you how close the timing came on some of the stuff for me being here. Now it's starting to shift. And I wouldn't be here actually. Remember I made fun of the economic downturn being a good thing for Right Care Initiative. I didn't know it was a life-saving thing for me too, because it was some of that stimulus funding that created a registry for studying genetics of lung cancer tumors, and that's where I got tested, and that's why I'm alive. So it all kind of fits together nicely. So as I, so we were, with the Right Care Initiative side, there was this stuff of looking at these intermediate outcome measures. And, you know, with any kind of quality improvement effort, there's this notion, well, you've got to make improvements, you really got to track them and so forth. So these were, there's some regional goals and